As gut-wrenching as it was to watch the Guardians survive in Detroit on Tuesday, maybe it identified some areas of focus for the Guardians at the trade deadline.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show today. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to do daily fantasy. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Thank you again for joining us. I am Jeff Ellis, one of your two co-hosts here. I was formerly a lead draft and prospect analyst nationally at Scoutin' 24/7, as well as your 73rd favorite blogger at every Cleveland sports blog that has existed or ever will exist. 73, because that's how many takes we've had to do today, thanks to my internet.
Justin Latta. I've been covering the Guardians minor league system since 2007. You might have read me at places like Guardians Baseball Insider. I was the editor. Currently at the News Herald, the Morning Journal, and Prospects Live. This is Locked On Guardians, your daily Cleveland Guardians podcast, and we dive into all things in the majors, the minors, and of course the draft. So if you're here to get your daily fix, you come to the right place, even if you had a tough time swallowing Tuesday night's win. It was a tough one. On today's show, we'll talk about that tough win. We'll talk about some areas of need for the Guardians based on what we saw. We already know about starting pitching, but are there other areas to look at and think about as well? And we'll also get into some more draft stuff, because that's coming up heavily. We'll talk about how teams buy players down the board, who those targets might be for the Guardians. We're going to get into more talk about 36 and 48. I think we haven't exhausted all the 1-1 talk, but we've talked about a lot of it. We'll get into some of that today, but we're going to try to move on to the later rounds and get you all informed for that as well. Before we get there, though, Jeff, wild game on Tuesday night. Fun start. You're up 3-0. You're up 6-0. You beat Ken Maeda, who has been terrible this year. You do what you need to do. The offense was fun early. Really, though, what happened is Ben Lively was hit with a line drive in the 6th inning. Probably should not have been allowed to continue. And the goofy part was, he said after the game, he goes, yeah, I felt it, but I shouldn't have affected me. Well, you probably weren't telling Stephen Vogt and the trainer that on the mound. You're probably saying, no, I'm fine. I think you need to make an executive decision there, because look what happened. I know hindsight's 20/20 and all that, but
could you say that he who felt it dealt it?
Yeah, there was a humorous moment, too, if you didn't catch the broadcast, that apparently when Ben Lively was going to stretch out his calf from where he got hit with the line drive, he also let one rip on the mouth there, and it lightened the moment up. And maybe Stephen Vogt ran back to the dugout. He's like, that really smells. I'm not going to stay out here with this guy. Josh Naylor was cracking up about it, but they were trying to squeeze a couple more outs out of Ben Lively in that 6th inning there, and it
no such luck.
Came back to bite him. No such luck, no, because not only, the line drive shouldn't end it there, and it was like, okay, well, then he gave up some more runs, never even got another out, and it cost them a tie. I know Salem came in, but he also got run of his own, which we'll talk about, but I think in the future, hopefully they learn that, you know what, just take the guy out. It's best for him, it's best for the team, and you were in the 3rd time through the order anyway. Ben Lively is not that guy.
Yeah.
I know the bullpen is worked hard, but you're almost to the break. And, injuries happen. So you got to be careful there. I think hopefully hindsight being 20/20, they don't do that again.
No, he's their, if the playoffs started today, he'd be their number 3 starter, in my opinion. But you and I both know he's a 5 and fly. Like, he should have one of the shortest hooks on this team. If he runs into trouble, especially because he doesn't miss bats, like, he's not going to strike guys out to get out of things. He's a pitch to contact pitcher, and he's been fantastic. Again, I want to stress the king of options has been fantastic. But after that line drive with him, showing a little more, and he's been a little more home run prone of late as well. So it's like, it was just the time to move on. Stephen Vogt has had very few moments this year where I'm like, Jacques Hughes, I would have done something different. This is probably one of them. This is one of those times I kind of looked at it and was like, oh, I don't know if I like this. Right as I was thinking it, you were texting it, and then everyone was swearing after that. Pretty soon.
Probably should have been out of there. And that's what we'll get into too with the bullpen as well, because really, I don't know if any starters right now you feel like in the playoffs, this is a guy who can go 3 times through the order. There are very good pitchers that have pitched in the postseason that we've seen the numbers, and we've seen the numbers say that 3rd time through the order is not a great idea. And better than what's been on the staff. So we'll see how Bivey progresses throughout the year. I feel like he's been getting better. I know the last start was there were some hiccups, but I don't think there's anybody in this rotation, especially this bullpen. I do for sure. He's your game one starter right now, but I don't even know if you want anybody going third time to the order against the Orioles or the Yankees, whoever it is, which again, to me, underscores bullpen need, which we'll get into.
I was gonna say, is this where I bring up like the ancient Japanese approach of why Tanner Bibee should maybe be your number 2 starter? I've talked about on Locked On MLB.
You're gonna go back to the 2016, 2017 approach. I mean, 2016 happened with Kluber because he was hurt and they were trying to get him.
Yeah, it was different, but yeah, there's some interesting strategic approaches to how you order your rotation. That's for another day.
Yeah, game theory. The offense though was a lot of fun in this game. Congrats Don Martinez for his first home run. He continues to be super fun. Can't say enough about him. I know, he'll slide eventually back to earth, but I think the plate discipline is going to give him a really nice place to settle into, and that's why he's been a good fit at number 2. And then you had big days from your stars, Quan, Ramirez, and Naylor. It's been a back and forth where the offense has been carried by the bottom of the order, and then sometimes the top of the order. Today, the top of the order did the job after not doing anything yesterday. They had more base runners in the first inning than they did all day on Monday. So good turnaround because, again, Kenta Maeda has been terrible. You needed that. The one thing we want to get into, though, is Josh Naylor had a great day today, and he made the Tigers pay. So hopefully that's a good sign. But Jose Ramirez had a big day. He also had 3 walks because teams would rather pitch to Naylor. And I understand why, because, your odds are better against Naylor than Jose in a tough spot there. I feel like the issue, though, is there's nobody behind Naylor where you're like, well, we put runners on for Naylor. If you don't get him, we're screwed. But right now, David Fry's had a tough June. He's having a tough July. John Kenson-Noel is still a rookie, and he chases a lot. I think the real issue underscore there, Naylor is one thing. If they're not going to respect Naylor, he can do damage, but, I understand that. But I think the need for a number 5 hitter at the deadline is something that should be talked about because I feel like you need that middle of the order that says, I don't want to walk anybody because there's no good poison to pick here.
Yeah, no, it's certainly, a bit of a disrespect to Josh Naylor for sure that they twice intentionally walked Jose to get to him. They got to figure it out, right? Like I love that they're playing on how right now and riding the hot hand, but as we have seen, the one problem with riding the hot hand is the Schneemann kind of coming back to earth. We've had, everyone kind of cools off, and sometimes you don't have a hot hand. Like you've said, Fry is an all-star and it's fantastic, but, and this is going to get me in trouble because I'm saying because I'm only supposed to be positive all the time, but anyone who's been watching has seen him really struggle in June and July.
Chase rates up both months.
Yeah, and today it was a fantastic at bat until he swung, and then that is a pitch.
He tried to homer.
Just hit a double, go for a line drive. He's trying to get everything in the air. He's going for homers all the time, and it's like when he was successful, he was just hitting the ball with authority. He was hitting it. It was doubles. It was singles. Occasional home run. He can't get a home run happy. And right now, I feel like this is, hopefully this is just a phase, and he'll get through it, and he'll be fine. That's the hope. But right now, you're not getting much from him.
Yeah, good execution there. They brought him in to face a lefty, Andrew Chafin, who he did beat earlier in the year on a home run against Detroit. Yeah, so that's the good execution. That's the right call there. It was the right spot for him. I've been saying that I think they need to ease up on how much they're playing Fry, but they almost have to because they don't really have a spot nailed down there, and they're trying to get the hot hand in the lineup. And I know he was so great the first 2 months, but he chased a lot in the minors, and the chase rate's starting to creep back up. So they got to figure that out. And here's the thing: we're not saying David Fry is not an all-star. He's not good. It's just he's going through a stretch where pitchers have adjusted, so he's got to adjust back. That is how baseball works. I mean, There's no secret there.
And that's what separates the men from the boys. That's what separates your,
right. Can
you got your Oscar Gonzalez from your Jose Ramirez is adjustments, right? Like that is what really makes or breaks a player.
And we saw for a long stretch that David Fry just wasn't chasing anything. So that we know that's in there. Plate discipline is one of those things that if you have it, you might struggle for a little bit, like Jose Ramirez did even. It'll come back. Like if that is a underlying skill you have, you will probably always have that until, you get older and eyesight starts to deteriorate, all that kind of stuff. Players do deteriorate chase rate as they get older, but if it is a skill you have as a younger player, you generally keep it in the majors, I should say. Translate from the minors. Sometimes it's a little wonky, but David Fry still has that. I think we saw it from him. He'll be fine. But I do think there's a need for a fifth hitter in this lineup on the trade market. We just have to see who it's going to be. Very quickly, Jose Ramirez in the home run derby. I'm super excited about that. He was telling Andre Knott that he's not sure what side of the plate he'll hit from this time. Last time he was in, the Guardians asked him to do from the right side because he was having thumb issues. He's got a lot of power from the right side, so I wouldn't be surprised if he does it from the right side this year. But Texas also has a pretty shallow fence around, so that'll be interesting. But I'm excited for Jose. I know people are going to sit there and scream about how it screws up your home runs. Mike Petriello of MLB.com did an article a couple years ago saying that no, that's a myth. Like some guys do, but overwhelming guys do not mess up their swing. Go back to Albert Bell in '94, was it '94 or '95? He did it where he hit 15 home runs the first half, and the second half he hit like 50 or 40 home runs. Didn't screw his swing up. I'm not saying Jose's Albert Bell, but he's already passed on the home run list, so maybe he is.
Yeah, and I'm always the funny thing was Albert Bell, what I found here was home run derby in '95, which was in Texas. So there is
yes. There you go.
There you go. So if my quick internet sleuthing is true, that's just kind of a fun through line with it. But so what you're guaranteeing is that Jose is going to hit a ton more home runs in the second half. That's what your statement is.
He's going to end the year with 50 home runs. Yeah, he's on pace for 40.
That's what you're just guaranteeing.
Why not?
You heard it here first.
50?
Justin will reimburse your bets.
There you go. Bet on him at 50 because the Guardians are going to trade for a number 5 hitter. It's going to scare the bejesus out of teams from walking him.
I hear there's like a great utility guy in Tampa they could trade for who's been playing well this year.
Which one? Yeah, right. I don't know. Tampa continues to sell. All right. We talked about Tuesday's game. It was fun. I want to talk about a reliever real quick. We're not going to have a lot of discussion on that. I want to make it quick because we want to get into more draft stuff. As draft is coming up Sunday, we've got a lot of things to cover there still. So a little bit more on this game and reliever targets or at least the idea of targeting reliever for the Guardians, and more draft stuff ahead on today's Locked On Guardians. I know Jeff wants to travel to the All-Star game in Texas. Of course, if you want to travel anywhere, it is a great time to travel. This episode is brought to you by booking.com. Summer travel is heating up. If you want to go to Texas for a baseball game, maybe you want to go out west after the Guardians get back. I think they got on the West Coast trip. Wherever you want to go, booking.com has a spot for you. I already talk about all the time about how booking.com saved my bacon trying to go to see Jim Thome get inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2018 in Cooperstown. I had nowhere to stay. Closest I can get was Utica, which actually worked out really good. I had a nice scenic drive into Cooperstown. I stayed away from all the traffic. I got a great price. I got it not really the last minute, but I got it after everything was already booked in Cooperstown. So I was way behind anyway. But see, the right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals, even Utica, even if you want to burn it to the ground. Book today on booking.com on the site or in the booking.com app. And check out, of course, my friends over at Game Time. You know, it's one of my favorite apps to use for buying tickets, maybe to the All-Star game, maybe to the Futures game, maybe to something to the draft on Sunday. Maybe if you're going to be in Texas, do all that. Because right now, even though the All-Star game is coming up very soon, you can get last-minute ticket deals on Game Time for MLB because they are the authorized ticket place in Major League Baseball. It makes getting tickets easier, faster, and prices go down closer to first pitch. So continue to watch that on the app for Game Time as well. And they have the all-in pricing, so you're never surprised after you put the tickets in your cart. You don't show up at checkout and you're like, where did that fee come from? None of that at Game Time. You know what you're going to pay before you get to checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDMLB for $20 off that first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create the account and redeem our code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, and that is a guarantee. All right, Jeff, real quickly, Nick Sandlin came in, hit the home run. Justin Henry Malloy, didn't love that. He has been a little shaky since coming back. I understand that. Yeah. Just here and there, we see like a little bit of cracks in the bullpen. Like Barlow's been a little bit shaky at times. Some days, Henches and Smith have been getting hit, and that's just going to happen throughout the course of the year. Still,
I would say Henches is a second half guy. I think we've seen throughout his career. That's the one thing I'll say. Like with Henches,
let's hope.
The last few years,
he's already been very good. So hopefully he's even better in the
He's been like almost unhittable in the second half the last 2 years.
Yeah. I know Pedro Villa has been great. I don't want to knock what Pedro's done for this team, and he's a guy that role you might need in the second half. But at some point, when late July rolls around, you have to start thinking about your lead and what your playoff aspirations are. And the Nick Sandlin, Eli Morgan, Pedro Avila, that little rotating spot they've had because of injuries and whatever, is one of those spots that can be upgraded. And we talked about how none of these starting pitchers, no matter who you acquire, I think, is going to be a guy you want going third time through the order. So really, the strategy for Cleveland is going to be get us 5 innings, the Ryan Merritt start, right, 4 2/3, and then go to your bullpen. So again, I continue to say this. I think the Guardians, it's not their biggest need. They do need a starting pitcher. Don't get me wrong. Absolutely need a starting pitcher. I just said they need a guy to bat fifth in the lineup, maybe. They also need a reliever, and it doesn't need to be Mason Miller, and it shouldn't be Mason Miller, actually. But there's Kirby Yates from Texas. There's Chad Green from Toronto. There are options out there. Carlos Estevez, even though the Angels, it sounds like they don't want to trade anybody. I was reading the other day that they may not sell. But there's going to be rental relievers. And I know you're going to say, well, everything's going to be expensive. Yes, and you have to give up something to get something. But we see trades all the time where you're like, that's all they got for that guy? Like, we thought this guy was going to go for a lot more. Teams are going to sell the last week. They're going to make the decision the last 48 hours. They're going to sell. That's why there's all calls going on now about gauging what teams are going to do. I think a rental reliever just makes too much sense for what this team is going to have to do in the postseason to win. It's going to be bullpen. They need another reliable arm out there. Again, not Mason Miller, but a rental experienced guy.
I got to be honest. Like, my general feel on it, I feel like I have a bias. Like, I'm gonna point out my bias here. It's like I have a hard time paying for a rental reliever, and I understand all of your logic. I'm not saying
what did Joe Smith cost? What did Joe Smith cost?
Wasn't that Julian Merriweather or was that Samad Taylor?
Samad Taylor and Thomas Pannone. How'd that work out?
Samad Taylor,
not a big deal.
Is still in the big leagues. You know,
great. Do you regret giving him up? Do you regret giving him Thomas Pannone?
Did Joe Smith get you anything?
That's not the point.
But
Joe
I'm
Smith
saying
they needed him.
I mean,
the Astros are cheating. It doesn't matter. What happened that year is irrelevant because the Astros are cheating. They needed Joe Smith. They needed a reliever. Oh, that was 20. Was that 20? It was 2017, not 2018. Sorry.
Yeah, I can't.
It wasn't Joe Smith's fault. They didn't go further, but you didn't get burned by giving up those prospects. Is what I'm saying. Same situation here.
I just have a hard time when it's relievers. Like I said, this is a bias. I'm just trying to say, like, for instance, last year, though this wasn't a rental, but if you look at like Paul Sewald, like Josh Rojas, Dominic Canzone, and Ryan Bliss, I think that's turned out.
Arizona made the World Series, Jeff.
They did.
Paul Sewald was great. How's Francisco Mejia doing? How's Clint Frazier doing?
I mean,
how's Justin Sheffield doing? I'm just saying.
Eventually, how's Junior Caminero for Tobias Myers worked? They can go the other way when they try. They thought they were fighting a depth arm. They thought they were getting.
Was not a rental reliever, man.
I know, but I'm saying, like, you can easily go the other way on it. Where, like,
sure.
Was it Jeff Bagwell for Larry Anderson? Was that John Smoltz for Doyle Alexander? I know those are the big examples.
The Tigers won the World Series.
I'm just saying that you can
with
go
Doyle
the other
Alexander.
way. I think that, like,
get the ring. I'm not saying you got to burn the whole farm to the ground.
I just think that
reliever. Guys always go for cheaper than you think.
I don't think like maybe you can get Chad Green cheap. Maybe we can get like you said, you talk about Estevez. It's just about figuring out. There's a lot of teams are going to be buying. I mean, the Mets just essentially bought Phil Maton for nothing. But like
Phil Maton's been terrible. Who cares?
I know, but the point is, like, they still. They're going out and getting him, even though he's been dog poop, because there's the need, and that need is what's going to drive the market. And there's not going to be a lot of sellers. And there's
going to be sellers. Teams are going to pivot at the last minute. It always happens. Yes, because teams are going to. All GMs are value driven these days. You're going to have teams that are 48 hours away from the trading deadline. They're going to be 4 or 5 games out, and they're going to say, you know what, I'd rather sell off this piece. Maybe not the Angels, because the Angels are stupid and you can't.
They're weird. And like Toronto is under the gun, and it's like, and there's other teams too.
Yes, but Chad Green is not part of their future.
It doesn't matter though. They can
run it back next year without Chad Green.
But you may not. If you're the GM, if you're Atkins, you may not be able to run it back. Right? This might be your only run.
Chad Green is not the difference between being able to run it back or not. Trust me.
But there's no. Then why do you want him? if he's not going to help you be the one to run it back?
Because you need that tertiary piece for this team. The Blue Jays are not going to win with Chad. It's the stupid Moneyball argument. Remember the stupid Moneyball scene where Brad Pitt keeps telling fake Mark Shapiro that you know what, Ricardo Rancone's not going to save your season. You can't do anything with him. Chad Green's not saving the 2024
but I don't think the Blue Jays are.
He's not saving the 2025 Blue Jays.
A GM who's fighting for his job isn't selling off pieces. Like that's just a GM whose job is on the line.
I'm not saying Bo Bichette or Vlad Guerrero.
It doesn't matter if your job is on the line. You're not making your team weaker on any level. If anything, they might end up being buyers trying to work their way into a playoff spot. Because
the Blue Jays can get a piece for Chad Green that could help them next year. You can trade.
They don't care. I don't think
level depth for that.
I don't think he cares about next year because it's about making it through this year and being there in a year.
There's no this year for them.
That's the thing, though. He's got to. When you are that guy under the gun, it's the same thing. Like if Preller, like if he doesn't make the postseason, he's gone. If Atkins doesn't make the postseason, he's gone. Those teams are not going to sell likely because they don't have the ability to. Like, and that's the danger of it. That's why, in some respects, you should fire that GM before you get to the deadline, because then someone's going to make value-based moves that are not based on the value of the team, but your personal value.
Too late now, and I think they have a better chance of running. If they continue to hang on to Guerrero and Bichette and those other guys and Springer or whatnot, they can try to run it back next year, and you can add a piece by trading Kikuchi and Chad Green. That's all I'm saying. Get Kikuchi and Green in the same package. I don't know. That might help Toronto next year. It helps you right now. Everybody wins. That's all I'm saying. All right, we're going to get into some more draft stuff here. We spent a lot of time on a reliever conversation I didn't expect, but it was fun. I enjoyed that, Jeff. I don't know about you. I had a lot of fun.
No, it's always fun. We got to be opposed for once.
For once, it was not contrived either. All right, how do teams buy players down the board in the draft, and what names are Jeff and I looking at 36-48? Because the Guardians seem to value 36 and 48 almost as much as that top pick for whatever reason. So we're going to talk to you about those guys coming up in just a second.
First, I'm going to talk about our good friends over at Prize Picks. I gave you terrible Prize Picks yesterday. I said, take the under on Jose Ramirez. I'm pretty sure he hit the over. I said, no, I'm not going to get a run in the first inning. They got 3. So my terrible information for the day is I want to take the under. David Fry hits plus runs plus RBIs at 1.5. I don't even know if we can guarantee that Fry will play tomorrow. And Reese Olson's been good. Like Olson's been a fantastic pitcher for most of the year. So I think that might be the one to go with. There's a chance he might even, be in a backup role. He might have a off day. I also liked Jose Ramirez for 0.5 runs. I like the over on that just because Jose has been hot. And when Jose is hot, he is on fire. So head over to Prize Picks, use the app or use the webpage. Use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. One word, all lowercase, no spaces, for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that is a promo code LOCKEDONMLB, all one word, lowercase, no spaces, for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Guardians and Tigers Wednesday. If it stays dry, 6:40. Check out the action on Sirius XM. Search Guardians on the Sirius XM app. It is really easy to find. All right, Jeff. So really quickly, I want to pull this up too for the 1-1 pick before we get down the board. You've talked before about Vegas sometimes knows. Right now, yes. Vegas right now has Travis Bazzana minus 130 as the first pick as of Sunday at 5:00 earlier this week. So Vegas doesn't always get it right, but they generally have a little more knowledge for some reason. And the two guys at the top there are Bazzana and Weatherholt, and that's who we think it's going to come down to. So,
and the line though has shifted. That's the thing to know. That line is shifted in favor of Bazzana. Listen, I talked about on yesterday's show that why I'm probably going to stick with Weatherholt there, but I also pointed out why it could be a massive smokescreen. I feel like I showed receipts there, and it's going to be fun. And I got to be honest, right now, part of it is they never. I don't think I've gotten their first round pick right since Clint Frazier. So I think I might just put Weatherholt there to make sure it's not Weatherholt. Not again.
I like it.
And then like if they pick him, hey, I got the pick right. If they get it wrong, and it's Bazzana, I'm happy. So maybe it's I don't care as much about being correct. When I first started in this game, I did. Now it's more about like having some fun with it.
Right. All right. So how do you buy it? We have a question about how you buy players down the board. So Basically, the simple of it is I'll let Jeff kind of describe the other side of this and why teams let this happen. But essentially, it's you're taking a figure, you're talking to advisors, and you're saying, "Hey, we're willing to give you, $4 million," and the advisor for that player shops that price around to other teams, and they say, "Hey, don't draft my guy if you're not going to pay him $4 million because we've got $4 million from." They're not going to say which team because that would hurt. Well, they might say which team, honestly,
Yeah,
to see.
sometimes they might, because
sometimes they will.
Because they might try to get more.
Yeah, they might try to drive it up, right? They could even lie about it.
Yeah.
But essentially, the advisor gets the number, and that's why we said at the end of Tuesday's episode, if you weren't listening, the Guardians know who they're picking because they have to have number one money locked in, so they know how much money they can offer at 36 and 48 to the players they want. Does it always mean the guy is going to get there? No, because what could happen is the team might say, "Yeah, we're willing to pay you the $4 million," and they say, "Well, we got it," or "We got 5 instead of 4," and boom, the guy is gone, and that happens. But
or sometimes
they shop around that figure and they say, "Don't draft my guy if you're not going to pay him this money."
Like I know of one player once who was like, he got a lower offer and his agent wasn't happy because he took it, but he wanted to go play for a specific team that was close to home, so he was willing to take less. And sometimes too, guys get itchier as the draft goes on, as well, in terms of taking these deals. Now you might be saying,
there's a reason it happens though, and you were saying it off air. Like there's a reason that guys do slide.
Yeah. Some guys do get bought down. Sometimes it's stuff we don't know about, but sometimes it is. You can go back to who we talked to yesterday with Sean Manaea. Sean Manaea was a guy who at one point was talked about as a potential 1-1 in his draft year. He had some health issues and was not as productive, but he's still widely viewed as a high pick, and he slid because the Royals offered him a ton of money to be a comp pick. You can go back to kind of recent examples. Brock Porter. It is harder with college guys. Cole Wilcox is probably the biggest example where I'll remember 2020 draft. One of the people out there breaking news said Cleveland's drafting Cole Wilcox in the first round, and they didn't. And
maybe they should have. I don't know. He might still be in the organization, not Carson Tucker.
Cole Wilcox ended up, he was part of the Blake Snell deal, I want to say. But he got $3 million in the third round to essentially push him down. And if you're like, well, why don't teams just take the guy they like? You don't want to tick off agents. You don't want to, and it goes the other way too. Like Cleveland took Ross Kivett. Like there's a guy where they had a deal in place and then he decided he wanted to go back to school. I think I could be wrong here, but I felt like after that his management changed, because when you have a deal in place and it doesn't stick, then that looks bad for the agent as well. Like Cleveland might have had a situation last year, depending on rumors, where that happens. I'd be curious to see what happens with that. But teams need to trust agents. Agents need to trust teams. It's all about mutual respect. And if they're, if you draft a guy in bad faith, like what happened with Boston and Jude Fabian, which was 100% the case. Like, I mean, so much so, like I remember his brother liking every single tweet and commenting on it after that happened. But it's like Boston drafted him knowing that he was set to go to Baltimore with the next pick. And they weren't going to give him the money he demanded, but thought that, hey, maybe he'll give in. And he didn't. And it's a bad look for all sides. And it's just not what you want. And you're going to work with these guys forever. So you need a good, positive relationship. So if there's a situation where, let's say, the CBS mock had Nick Kurtz going at 15, if he is falling down the board, or let's say Connor Griffin, I think was at 14 in that one. Cleveland, we know, has still had conversations with Connor Griffin. They're keeping the lines of communication open. Why do they keep the lines of communication open? Because if he does slide to like 14 or 15, you might call him and be like, hey, we'll give you $5 million if you get to 36. So then if a team like
that might
comes
be tempting,
up, yeah, because like I think the a value of the 14th or 15th pick is only like 3 or 4 million. Like if you're getting $5 million, that's going to be one of the top 7 bonuses. So there's not a lot of teams who can do that, but Cleveland can, and that's also why they might be looking to save money, is to grab a guy who slides, because someone kind of does every year, but not every year does a team have enough room to put the Godfather offer out.
Cleveland does. So some of the names we've talked about just real quickly as we're ending today's episode, we won't have time to dive in, but we will get to these guys more in depth later in the week before the draft. We've talked about Ryan Sloan a little bit, a high school pitcher. We both really like him. I don't know if he's going to get to 36. You've heard a lot of guys mention Carter Johnson. Slade Caldwell is a hot one. That makes some sense. He is starting to fall on some boards, and I wonder if that has to do with
he's this
short.
Big. He can fit in your pocket.
I've seen people mention Cash Mayfield, but he's older, so I don't know if Cleveland necessarily goes there. I'd be very interested in Sloan. I still like Caldwell.
Is Logan Clark the only 19-year-old they've drafted since Connor Capel, high school kid?
Out of high school, yeah. The rest of them were JUCO kids, I think. So
I think it's Connor Capel and Logan Clark, so it's like 2 in a very long time.
It's very rare, but Mayfield's interesting. So yeah, I think Sloan. I don't know if they can buy Sloan down, but he'd be an interesting target. We've heard Caldwell.
Dowdy.
We've heard Carter Johnson. Yeah, Braylon Dowdy is another one at 36. I think Joey Oki's out of range at 36. You don't need to go that high with him.
I mean, Joey Oki might be there in the 3rd or 4th round. He's not had a good spring.
Yeah.
He's not the guy there.
I like Kellen Lindsay a little bit more. Is that the guy I said I liked a little bit more? He was
I mean, I like Wyatt Stanford is very much a Guardians type of guy. Like that could be
Wyatt Stanford. Any of these shortstops.
Who might
David Shields. David Shields might be an overdraft at 36.
You know who's very much their guy? Very much their guy is Theo Gillen because catnip for injury. Yeah. That's right. But here's the thing: if Theo, there's my line.
He'll never get hurt again, Jeff. Don't worry about it.
If Theo Gillen hadn't been hurt, he might be in that top 10 discussion. Like
that's true.
He's got the physical traits and everything else. Where it's like, if he had been healthy all year, he might be the number 1 prep player in this class. Like instead he's had I believe he's one of like 14 guys who've had labrum surgery in this class. It's crazy. He's a labrum knee and groin. I don't think Caminiti gets down that far.
No.
So I don't think that
he's going higher. We've heard that teams are that public facing writers are told to move Caminiti up. I don't think he gets past Detroit.
No, I think Detroit, like William Schmidt, depending on how you view as a guy who's kind of in that range.
Yeah, Dowdy has been a hot one. I think Dowdy makes a ton of sense there. If they go Weatherholt, I would expect, based on history, them to go prep pitcher there. Dowdy, Shields, Levi Sterling. This is an old graphic, but Levi Sterling has been falling. I don't think that's too early for Dason Hill. I think the idea at 36 has got to be Dowdy because I don't see another pitcher at 36, but that makes sense. Maybe Shields, maybe. Unless you get Nick or Mayfield down.
When I mentioned that, like, I think their dream scenario in this was to get Caldwell and Dowdy down the board, and now I need to find. I'm not going to out this person who works for.
Yeah, Dowdy's not getting to 48.
This is somebody who works for a major league organization out of New York, and he says that he knows at least 3 teams that have him in the first round of their board.
Yeah, so Dowdy to 36 might be close to a pipe dream. 48 not happening.
Yeah. So
they got to go there. But yeah, he might be someone they buy down. I mean, it'd be interesting if they can get William Schmidt or Ryan Sloan down there. I would expect a prep pitcher. I think you're right. I think it's Caldwell, it's Theo Gillen, or it's Sloan or Dowdy. I think those are
I think Sanford as well. Sanford is very much their type of guy.
Yeah.
And again,
maybe Carter Johnson.
Yeah.
Maybe Carter Johnson.
I also think it's just seeing who slides. I think a lot of this is putting the money here.
But they're already having conversations with these guys. They know they are.
But I think it's just seeing who is available. Like who is going to be the guy. Cam Collier hasn't worked out, but Cam Collier was universally a top 5 player who ended up sliding to 19. Why? Because the Reds paid him down. That's why he got to the Reds. It is easier with prep guys and college guys. It's a much smaller one, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see who's available. But I think part of it is I think they're casting a wide net and doing a wait and see.
Yeah, they'll try to be advantageous if they can with the money, and they'll be able to call advisors and say, hey, your guy's sliding. We got money. Let's do it. That's the advantage here. But again, to do that kind of stuff, that's why they want to cut it 1-1. But and
they're not going to give anyone $10 million at what one.
Yeah, let's just say that right now. 9.5 is as high as Cleveland goes. I don't think they go that high, but 9.5 is nobody in this class is getting above 9.5. If I'm wrong, call me out on it. But I don't think anybody else is going ahead of 9.5. Yeah. What we do know for sure is we'll be back in your feeds tomorrow. Hopefully the Guardians play. If not, we're going to have more on the draft. Jeff and I want to talk about favorite high school targets, pitchers and hitters, favorite college targets, pitchers and hitters as well. We'll get more in depth on the draft as the week goes on, as it shows up, comes up on Sunday. So we'll get into that. And then Thursday, you got the pitcher that the Guardians just acquired.
Spencer
He's
Howard.
starting on Thursday. Spencer Howard's starting on
Spencer
Thursday.
Howard.
So we'll see how that goes. But thank you all for being here and listening, all that fun stuff. And we'll be back at it with more draft stuff tomorrow.
So, make sure you rate and review, download daily. It all helps. Tell me in the comments who is your favorite home run champion ever. And then Justin will respond to those comments, not me. But thank you. And go Guardians, go.